For the past few years, gaming hasn't really felt fun to me anymore. There have been some fun moments here and there, but often I find myself feeling more disillusioned than anything else. In large part, it may be because of the types of games I play. Usually, I tend to prefer more emotional, linear, story-based games. But I still enjoy these. Rather, it feels like I'm tired of games as a whole, even though it's a hobby I love deeply. Not just that, but one I've always dreamed of making a job of. Maybe that's exactly my problem. Gaming has become a job. For the past 2 years or so, I've been freelance writing about games, and for years before that, I was working on this YouTube channel, as well as my personal writings. Between all of these, maybe I've come to associate games with work. After all, they are a tax write-off. I didn't buy FNAF Most Wanted because I really wanted to play it anymore, but because I knew if I could write a decent article, I could make an admittedly pathetic amount of side money. But I've wanted this. It's been my dream to write about games for years, and I love doing it. I'm passionate about it, and despite how much work it is, especially being split up into a job and at least 2 hobbies on top of my regular, barely not minimum wage day job, I do love it. I do not resent my position, nor do I wish to get out of it. It's still my dream job. But regardless, playing games does often feel more like work than an escape these days. Often, I get home from work very exhausted, do my homework, and then, instead of going to bed, play a game. Not because I want to, but because I feel like I have to. Even if I would rather be sleeping or doing a different hobby. Gaming has become a chore. Even if I do enjoy talking about, writing about, and playing the games I play. But in the mess of all of that, there are still games that I have found fun. Not just a little fun, but addictingly so. In contrast to the usual games I play, the story-based games I adore, the FNAF games I used to play for work, the various other games I forced myself to play for gaming history or for this channel, these games I find unbelievably fun. These are games I can play for hours without stopping, games that rarely seem to frustrate me, games I feel like I'll never get tired of. Games that make me feel like a 5-year-old at Chuck E. Cheese again, or like I'm back in my childhood bedroom, constantly slamming the lid shut on my DS at night because I'm having too much fun to stop playing. These are the funnest games I've ever played. I've been a Scott Pilgrim fan since middle school, so I was obviously going to get around to the game eventually, but I didn't expect it to be this good. It's basically an arcade-style beat-em-up. It doesn't hold your hand or walk you through the story because, like many of the games it takes inspiration from, it expects you to already know all of that. Back in the day, Double Dragon had a game manual with its story. Scott Pilgrim streamlined that process by being based off an already pre-existing comic and movie. I started playing Scott Pilgrim in multiplayer with my sibling on the TV at my parents' house, and I've been addicted ever since. It brings back that feeling missing from a lot of games today, the absolute joy and chaos of couch co-op. My brother and I would beat up bad guys together, realize that you can PvP by throwing objects, and then spend a ton of time just throwing things at each other, or picking each other up and throwing them at bad guys. It's just so unbelievably fun. I have spent hours in Scott Pilgrim just wrecking my brother's shit and getting my shit wrecked, and I still can't get enough of it. We mostly play on my brother's copy because he's maxed out most of the playable characters and we stand an overleveled king, but I just recently bought my own copy of the game and it's so much fun. Now we can play no matter whose house we're at, and even with players at level 0, it's still incredibly chaotic. I admittedly haven't played much of the single player campaign, but what I have played has still been fun. I was a big Double Dragon kid growing up, and I kinda miss arcade-style beat-em-ups. So even though single player is missing what I think is the most fun aspect of the game, it's still really enjoyable.
Oh, what was that? Whew. Whew. That was one ridiculous nightmare. I gotta stop drinking. Okay. How the fuck did I get here?
Holy shit, what can I even say about Deathloop that hasn't already been said a million times by everyone else? About a year and a half ago now, I played Dishonored for the first time ever and fell head over heels in love. I was obsessed, playing over and over again, trying everything I possibly could. I loved stealthing, I loved going the chaotic route, and I loved the story itself. There was so much fun gameplay, so many different ways to play, I was sure I could never get sick of it. And then I did. It started slowly at first. I wasn't enjoying those sweet kills as much, stealth was getting boring, I was getting frustrated more and more often. I started to just be bored and frustrated every time I booted up the game. I was falling out of love with a game that had given me so much joy for months. I skipped right over buying the DLC and got a copy of Dishonored 2 instead, hoping an innovation over that familiar game could help me get back into it. And I liked Dishonored 2, but I just couldn't get back the joy I got from those initial playthroughs. And then I got Deathloop, and holy shit! Technically, Deathloop is a game in the far future of Dishonored, but it stands alone as a great game and story. The game itself plays very similarly to Dishonored, but the nearly a decade in between their releases shows from the start of the game. Movement is funner, enemies are quicker, and if you get caught in an area, there's absolutely no hesitation or time to think if you want to stop yourself from getting blown to bits. Deathloop is a time loop game, and while the story is good, it isn't super important to the game itself. Pretty much all you need to know is this is a time loop, kill those guys, and if you want more of the story, it's there for you to discover. I love the movement in Deathloop so much. I adore jumping from rooftop to rooftop, running up and kicking enemies into the abyss, gunning down crowds as I teleport around. Like Dishonored, there are a billion different ways to play, and though I've been playing for around 3 years now, I always find myself discovering new things, and there's still a ton of extra story quests I haven't even gotten to yet. While I love the story of Deathloop, I often find myself coming back to just experience the gameplay detached from the story. When I kick all those dudes off roofs, it isn't because I have to. It's not about saving the world or ending the loop. I just like doing it. I have fun, it's enjoyable. And maybe the game has some commentary on that, on how, as a player, I've become just as desensitized and nihilistic as Colt and Juliana. But really, I just think it's a fun gameplay loop. The first time I played Deathloop, back in high school, I remember telling my brother over and over that it was the funnest game I've ever played. And 3 years later, that hasn't really changed. Sometimes I feel myself getting a little frustrated, but I almost immediately find a way to make the level fun again. Like Dishonored and the billion other games inspired by it, you never truly run out of different ways to approach a level. Deathloop isn't the #1 funnest game I've played anymore, but it still ranks pretty high for me.
Ultrakill. You gotta you gotta record the Discord call so that way you can do one of those bits where it's like live react.
Ultrakill is a game I've put off playing for nearly 4 years now, and I'm finally getting around to playing it. As someone who's actually pretty bad at being a gamer, I suck at this game, and it's one of the most frustrating things I've ever played. But no other feeling will ever come close to finally getting it right. In Ultrakill, I'll often find myself having an amazing time and then encounter a challenge that leaves me stuck. This gets frustrating. It's the main reason I put off the game for so long in the first place. And I've encountered this before in many other titles. Usually the solution is simple. Take a break. Go somewhere else, explore, level up, and get the gear you need, and then come back. But what Ultrakill promises is not that you can perfect these shortcomings, not that you can somehow outsmart the machine, but that you can blast through it completely. You can tear it apart bit by bit with horrible, unmitigated violence. And holy shit, is it great! I don't get frustrated at Ultrakill because I know no matter how hard a level gets, if I simply adjust a few factors, switch out my weapon mid-shot, go at it from another angle, I still won't get it perfect, but I will destroy it, blast my way through so efficiently that what seemed like a challenge before is nothing but viscera left behind in my wake. Watching back footage of the carnage, I can't even tell you what's going on in more than half of it. If you asked me to explain my previous actions, sit down and go second by second, I don't think I could do it. At a certain point, Ultrakill becomes muscle memory, acting on instinct alone, destroying everything in your path. The first time I encountered this enemy, it took me over an hour to beat. Anyway, here's me blasting through it in under 2 seconds, not even taking the time to see it fall to the ground before carrying on my parade of blood and violence. One of my favorite levels is called Heart of the Sunrise. After playing through this entire prelude, a series of endless, bloody violence, you're met with this. It's a brief release from the tension, a second to just wander through a garden peacefully. The music here is beautiful, the view endless. But lingering for too long brings the realization that it isn't real. It's too perfect. The sky is projected on screens, the music from speakers. This entire space is an illusion that shatters itself when you step through these doors and beautiful music still playing, waterfall still rushing, all of the sights from before. Enemies spawn anyways. You know what you're supposed to do. Do not be mistaken. This wonderful scene will soon too be covered with blood.
My mind is adrift with the eternal torments, lurid vistas painted in insidious tones, hollow walls that scream to the touch. A mocking song plays at all hours, even the sounds of birds are fake. What punishment is this, that I am to bear the keys of my own doom with no hope of salvation? These skulls sneer their devilish grins, voices chattering, tempting me to take the plunge deeper into hell.
There is no real peace in Ultrakill. Every release is another falsehood that projectile launches you into even more violence. The environment of the game itself lies to you and then dares to ask why you'd even believe that lie. You know what this game is. You paid $20 for it. What else did you expect? Mankind is dead. Blood is fuel. Hell is full. Do you really need anything more than that? What can I say about Fortnite? Hell, what is there even left to say about Fortnite? Everyone else has been talking about it for forever. I'm just 7 years late to this. When Fortnite came out, I was an insecure middle schooler in the midst of cringe culture. And though I became less insecure throughout high school, I was still of the belief that Fortnite was somehow below me. By junior year, I was over my weird Fortnite superiority complex, but I just didn't care enough to get into it. But now I'm 20 years old, completely broke, and cringe culture is dead. So last December, I finally bit the bullet and downloaded it, and oh my god, is it addicting. I went into Fortnite with the intention of just doing one quick stream and maybe getting the battle pass just because it was the time of Peter Griffin and I fully commit to the bit, but I've spent so much money on this now, it's not even funny. Can I build at all? Can I crank 90s till the cows come home? Not at all. Fortnite is compounded by the fact that I am absolutely garbage at it. But a big part of the appeal is the freedom that comes with Battle Royale. Am I a good player by any means? Hell no. Again, I can't even build, which is one of the main things that sets Fortnite apart from its contemporaries. But even at my level, it's not impossible or even hard to get a few #1 victory royales. It's so impossible to talk about Fortnite because the only way I can describe Fortnite is that it is Fortnite. Rick Sanchez can duke it out with Solid Snake, Omni-Man can K-pop dance over Darth Vader's dead body. Anything is possible. If there's one thing I could talk about with Fortnite, aside from just how much is going on with it, it's Fortnite's movement. Fortnite isn't a movement shooter, but it kind of almost is. There's so much character and physicality and detail put into just running and jumping that it makes them even funner to do. And oh god, if you manage to pull off some sort of trick shot, does it make you feel powerful? I'm not a game designer or an animator, so I can't tell you how much work and detail goes into making this play so good. But I can tell you it sure as hell does play good. If Fortnite's movement is fun, Mirror's Edge is even better. There's minimal gunplay and fighting in this game, it's all movement. Mirror's Edge is your favorite parkour game, one that just knows how to make it satisfying. No matter where you're running and jumping and climbing, there's always more to do in Mirror's Edge. The story is fun, but I didn't even pay much attention my first playthrough. Just set me loose in a massive McDonald's playscape disguised as a city and let me go. Mirror's Edge is a game I return to very often, and part of the reason is because it's just so damn easy to be good at. Unlike most games, there's really only one thing to do here, and you do it so much that you can get pretty consistent. Like Fortnite, the movement is incredible here. The minute-to-minute gameplay has you sliding down pipes and wall jumping and slamming through glass to make it through a passage just before it closes. It's an amazingly crafted adrenaline rush. Despite being over 15 years old at this point, Mirror's Edge does not look or feel it. In fact, it could probably easily pass as a game from the last few years. Countless games have tried to replicate Mirror's Edge only to fail miserably, because they're missing what makes it fun. Mirror's Edge is a wonderful, endless playground of sprints and jumps, and I adore every second of it. Of all the games I've mentioned so far, this is probably going to be the most controversial. For starters, Need for Speed Most Wanted, the Need for Speed Most Wanted I love and grew up playing, is not the first Need for Speed Most Wanted. Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012 is actually a remake, completely rebranded from its 2005 counterpart. Most Wanted 2012 was famously kind of hated. Most Wanted 2005 has gone down in history as possibly the greatest Need for Speed game, and to many, 2012 spat on its legacy. For one, it suffered from the problem that plagues most EA games: microtransactions. While the base game sets you free in a pretty big playground, most of the map is locked behind paywalls, separate DLCs you have to buy for new areas. This would be fine if those DLC were substantial. Again, like most EA games these days, Most Wanted's DLCs were not like regular DLCs. They were parts of the game that, in past iterations, would have been standard and included in that hefty initial purchase. But for all of its flaws, I fucking adore Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012. This is the game I grew up playing, huddling close to my brother's PS Vita at midnight. This is the version I spent countless hours in. Need for Speed games are just racing games. There's nothing else going on there. So that means you can just kind of put your all into it. I've been in countless police chases, I've broken every light pole, I've smashed every billboard. There's just so much to do, so much ground to cover in these little racetracks disguised as cities. As my sibling has often mocked me for, my favorite vehicle in the game is the Ford F-150 SVT Raptor. Not because it's the fastest or it races the best, but because it can take a hit. It's an absolute tank of a vehicle, able to knock into just about anything and come out without a crash screen. The faster cars feel so fragile. You can go so quick, but without good control, you'll crash in seconds. What's more important to me is that tankiness, being able to smash into everything in my path and still carry on. I've T-boned police cars and sent pedestrians flying. After all of it, I've silently trekked out to the most desolate areas, finding peace in the seamlessness of it all. Need for Speed Most Wanted is fun. I've spent countless hours coming home from a long day at work or school and booting up my laptop to drive off into the distance, covered in dust, surrounded by city and moonlight, and the most alive feeling I've ever felt. I've loved Need for Speed Most Wanted since I was young, but there's another reason it's so special to me now, and that, well, is admittedly a little odd. When I was 15, I went through a phase where I was obsessed with The Sims. I had a version of it for my dad's Xbox One, but the console version was shitty, and even then, the TV was never free. I wanted to be able to play it on the go, have it with me constantly, but it was pretty expensive for a teenager unable to get a job with parents who didn't have money to spare. One day, when I was talking about how badly I wanted it, a friend in my theater class offered to just give me a copy. She'd gotten a copy of the game as a gift, she didn't play it, and she knew I wanted it. She just transferred her whole EA account to me, someone who, at the time, I didn't even think liked me very much. She was my friend, but I was a socially awkward 15-year-old who wasn't used to having friends and didn't know how to act around people. I can wholeheartedly tell you how annoying I was at ages 15 to 16, but regardless of that, she went out of her way to do something nice, without any incentive, just because she was able to. It was incredibly kind of her. I'm just barely 20 now, and aside from the occasional Instagram reply, I haven't really talked to her since she graduated 2 years before I did. I still use that EA account, though, for everything. It's a window to a time I can never return to, a person I was and no longer am. I love Need for Speed because it's fun, but seeing that username every time, that username I still haven't changed in nearly 6 years, puts me in my feelings. For a split second, I remember what it was like to be someone else. For a split second, I'm 14 again, awkwardly standing against the wall, hoping someone will come over to talk to me. For just a moment, I'm a teenager again. But I'm not alone anymore. So, what now? These are games I find fun. Games that so far haven't gone stale to me, but I can't promise that eventually they won't. I thought Dishonored would never get old, and then it did, and though it's gotten funner again, I can't seem to ever recapture the joy I first felt when playing it. I should love playing games. I've always loved playing games, so what now? What's wrong with me? Where do we go from here? Well, the truth is, I've kind of been lying to you. The majority of this video comes from an older script, one I started writing nearly a year ago. The truth is, I don't know if I really feel this way anymore. I played through Max Payne, Outer Wilds, Celeste, and Prey 2017, and they still feel new. I've also been trying to accept that it's okay to give up on a game. I tried playing Gris, I tried Deus Ex, and while I can see the appeal they have to people, they didn't click for me. I found every second of my attempts frustrating and annoying, and so after months of trying to force myself through it, I just gave up. In the past, I've always made myself keep playing games, even when I hated a game, just because of the amount of shame I felt putting it down. But I'm trying to get better at that. When I've been playing for a while and I realize there's nothing I want to keep playing for, I'm trying to slowly become okay with just dropping a game. And even more recently, I bought a PS3 and have started collecting games again. I've emulated the rarer, harder to find Silent Hill games I've wanted to play and became obsessed. The truth is, I don't know how to end this video, because the main conceit of it has already been solved. Everything feels new again, and maybe part of the problem I was having was because I was sort of depressed again for a little while, and I didn't even realize it until afterwards. My problem has been solved by simply playing some different games and improving my mental health. So what now? Where can I possibly end this? And what am I gonna do if it happens again? I suppose that answer still exists. If I find myself feeling worn out, I can take a break, meditate, check out some new games I probably wouldn't otherwise play. I can stop putting so much pressure on myself to play games for work and YouTube, but I know regardless, I'll probably still feel that pressure. Knowing the answer to a problem doesn't solve it. Self-awareness can't help anything if you don't do something with it. To be honest, I think a lot of the burnout I was dealing with stems from feeling behind. Like it or not, I was born in late 2004, and my parents had 5 kids to take care of and not a lot of money when I was growing up. So through the fault of circumstance alone, I missed out on a lot of the big classics. I've spent a lot of time playing catch-up, worrying about how much I still have to play, and I focused a lot on playing on original hardware and trying to capture the feelings of the times, which adds on a lot of stress and makes me focus more on finishing a game than experiencing it. For the past few months now, I've taken to playing Final Fantasy XIV, an MMO that's been running since 2013. I only just now got to the first expansion, and there's just so much to do that I often worry and try to speed through the game. But in doing so, I miss all the things I like about it. I've been trying to slow down when it comes to catching up on games, but it's still really hard to not feel behind when there are thousands upon thousands of classics out there. I think, more likely than not, when I'm stuck in a rut, I'll still return to these games, and countless others. Because even though story and character-focused games are my favorite, there's a soft spot in my heart for games that know what it means to be fun, and completely nail it.